Comrades and friends, in his 2014 pre-conference document, What is the Working Class and Does it Retain its Revolutionary Potential?, Workers' World Party First Secretary Larry Holmes wrote, and I quote, "We need to define or redefine the global working class because the new dynamics of global capitalism is changing the dimensions of our class, and this phenomenon will not only continue, it is bound to accelerate." I continue with Larry. "There are vast economic, social, and cultural differences in society. Capitalist development exacerbates these differences, but it also mitigates them as well. It is in the interest of capitalism that the differences be exacerbated. It is in the interest of socialism and revolution that it be proven, both in theory and in practice, that the mass of the people are more than social fragments, floating out there in the universe with no relationship to each other and no common class interest. Part of our political struggle will be to demonstrate that the masses are indeed diverse, but that the overwhelming majority of the mass constitutes a class, the working class. There are many nationalities and many movements, including national liberation movements, women's movement, the indigenous peoples movements, along with the movements of LGBTQ people, the movements of oppressed peoples, including the disabled, should not be minimized, ignored, or in any way disrespected within the working class movement. The distinctions amongst the people should be fully understood by us, including the consciousness, the issues, and the political programs that flow from it. Ultimately, the responsibility for redefining and setting forth the political basis for a new and expanded working class will fall on the Revolutionary Party. It is up to us to show that there is a path to a new revolutionary unity and a new and dynamic working class. That path is through revolutionary ideology, struggle, internationalism, and solidarity, especially the solidarity that the working class movement extends to the most oppressed sections of the masses," end quote. I feel that Comrade Larry's orientation is just as prophetic today as we are now facing another spectacle known as the presidential elections. Of course, one of the most oppressed sections of the masses is the Black nation, regardless of the geography and social status. The Black Lives Matter struggle, like other social movements, are being confronted by bourgeois candidates like Hillary Rodham Clinton, attempting to co-opt them. But the disruption, as Larry pointed out, of Clinton in Atlanta by a handful of Black activists chanting, "Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter," shows that activists are not being enamored by this year-long sham. This ongoing rebellion of the no business as usual tactics continues to put the police, the government on all levels, and the status quo on the defensive, even without a unified program of demands, and that is the truth. And we must keep in mind that the Black Lives Matter movement is another phase in the struggle for Black liberation, involving a diverse array of political and ideological currents that is still a work in progress. For those of us who remember firsthand the Black liberation movement almost 50 years ago, there were two distinct currents: the mass civil rights movement, based mainly in the South, struggling for bourgeois democratic rights, and the revolutionary current embodied by the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense and others who were inspired by Malcolm X and worldwide national movements, liberation movements, especially in Africa. And don't we feel like we're on sort of on hallowed grounds being in this place? You can just feel the spirit of Malcolm X. You know, even as a Marxist, we can feel the spirit of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz in this place. Many in this current were guided by anti-imperialism and revolutionary Marxism and socialism. And it wasn't any coincidence that our party was founded just a few months following the Cuban Revolution. It was not a contradiction for our party to express close affinity ideologically with this revolutionary current in the Black struggle, with our party, and at the same time in solidarity with the Civil Rights Movement, because the Black masses were in motion, fighting for the same democratic rights as whites in general. Our party saw no contradiction in showing practical support to both wings of the struggle. So today it is important, not just for our party, but for the entire progressive movement to support and defend the Black Lives Matter struggle. Not because we agree with all the spectrum of political positions, but because it is the most oppressed, engaged in struggle, and also is being constantly and viciously under attack by the repressive state, which represents the interests of the billionaire ruling class. Black Lives Matter embodies the national question, which is a cornerstone of the struggle against capitalist exploitation, along with other oppressed nations, whether they exist inside or outside the US, and regardless of social status. The Black Lives Matter movement has helped to raise consciousness that within this movement, as Imani talked about, there exists the women's question, the LGBTQ question, and the disabled question. In the forefront of the Black Lives Matter movement are Black women and LGBTQ people, especially trans women, who are being impacted daily by this racist war. And I hope everyone, or most of you, will attend a very important breakout group on the role of women and LGBTQ people in the Black Lives Matter movement, which later on this afternoon, because it's going to help remind us, everybody here, that Black women have also been murdered by the police, targeted by the police, from Sandra Bland in Texas to Melissa Williams in Cleveland, and just endless numbers of other women. Eleanor Bumpers, we can go back many, many years. Absolutely. Yes. An astounding large percentage of Black people killed by the police have had some kind of disability. The most recent being Jeremy McDowell in Delaware, who was shot 10 times while in his wheelchair. When Larry talks about the revolutionary potential of the global working class, Black workers are an integral part of this potential due to the deepening global economic crisis of low wages, austerity, and cutbacks. This permanent stage of capitalism has created a crisis for Black workers in terms of marginalization and isolation, making them even more vulnerable and a target for police repression and mass incarceration. When there are no jobs, when there are drastic cuts in education, and the militarization of our schools, then the ruling class is sending a clear message to the police that it is open season on Black and other oppressed youth. Comrades and friends, young Black workers are part of our class, whether they have a job or not. When I visited Ferguson last August and also last October, young Black people told me two things. They want the police to stop killing them, to stop profiling them racially, and they want decent paying jobs. They want to be in the unions, not in the jails. And our party couldn't agree more with this sentiment. Young Black workers, including the youth, need broad solidarity from the movement, especially those who are on the front lines, fighting state repression. It is the same kind of solidarity that immigrant youth need as they are being viciously attacked by ultra-right-wing racists like Donald Trump, along with ICE, the police, and other racist agencies. Which direction the Black Lives Matter will be going towards will be explored in due time. But comrades and friends, now is not the time to criticize this movement. This is not the time to do it. This movement right here, right now, needs solidarity. And we all should be thinking about how to be helpful to this dynamic movement, which helps to uplift all the other movements and will also come under even more vicious attack, especially by the police in words and deeds. We should all be thinking about being a part of the solution and not the problem, and encouraging others to do the same that we have influence with. So in closing, comrades and friends, it is so crucial for the Black Lives Matter movement to see that socialists and communists stand shoulder to shoulder with them, defending their right to self-determination as an oppressed nation. As our late chairperson, Sam Marcy, wrote about time and time again, and this was actually, this quote I'm paraphrasing from was when Jesse Jackson was running in 1984 on a mass movement platform. He said that the national question is synonymous with the class struggle, especially inside the United States. The national question impacts every aspect of the class struggle because super exploitation lays the basis for all forms of inequality. Capitalism could not exist without it. And this is what keeps the ruling class in power and the working class at its mercy. But as Larry was saying, things are changing dialectically because material conditions are worsening and worsening for our class. And taking this kind of principled stand will not only build unity that is desperately needed for the battles ahead, but will win new revolutionaries over to the only alternative to police terror, and that is socialist revolution. So if nothing else comes out of our election campaign, we want to be known as the candidates for Black Lives Matter, the candidates for the Boston Bus Drivers Union, the candidates for immigrant rights, the candidates for poor and working people all over the world, the candidates for Palestine, the candidates for socialist revolution. So let's help build the workers' world and on to our election campaign to tear down this system.
Probably one of the most heinous and lowest parts of someone's life is fighting the police and the state when you've lost a loved one. And with that said, I want to take a moment to welcome and thank so much Dionne Smith Dowes, whose son, 16-year-old James Rivera Jr., was killed by the Stockton, California police in a barrage of gunfire right into his vehicle while he was driving. Dionne and her spouse, Carrie, have become leaders in Stockton, fighting against the constant racial and racist police terror in that city. They have both become exemplary in their show of solidarity with other families, and in fact have organized other families, buses, to bring Oakland residents to demonstrations in Sacramento and other cities in California with my greatest respect and thank you for all that you've done. I want to bring to the stage Dionne Smith Dowes.
Thank you. I kind of got a little emotional there. You know, like you said, I am Dionne Smith Dowes from Stockton, California. And I've been on the battlefield for 5 years fighting for justice for my son. I am a mother of 14. I don't feel sorry for myself. I just fight because I know we have to fight. You know, the media slanders, everybody is slandering us, but we still have to fight, you know, because that was our baby. And we raised our baby, and we know our child. And at the end, before I sit down, I want to show you why I fight so hard. And my son, he deserved to live. He was only 16 years old. He was unarmed. He was knocked into 2 mailboxes, into 2 garages. And they shot at my son 48 times. 18 entered his body. They used AR-15 in a community. I arrived to the scene because I was asleep when it was happening. But when I was woke up by people in my community, they kept calling my phone. And so I got up to see what she was telling me. And she said the police had stopped my son and they let him go. So I didn't really pay no attention. So I just continued to stay in the bed. She calls me again and said, you need to get up. And once I got up to get in my car to go to where she was telling me to go, I heard gunshots, because you can hear it in the air. But I'm not thinking that's my son. I'm not thinking that's my son. And I went to like 2 stop signs, and I just felt so bad, really bad. Then I seen all these officers out there. I seen people running with their kids. I seen people screaming. So I resumed that way because I'm still looking for my son, what she was telling me. But some told me to go that way. And so when I go that way, the police said you can't go that way. And I lied and said, I live here. And so I was continuing to follow all the people that was running. And I'm driving down the one-way street, which is like a street in the neighborhood. And so where everybody was at, I had to go the opposite. So I'm going slow to see what's going on. And I get out my car, and the young man said, that's your son. And I was looking like, huh? This is not my community. He said, ma'am, that's James. And I don't know if I screamed or what, but I was just I didn't know what happened. I didn't know the police did it at the time. So they hurry up and put my son up. But what I noticed, they were slapping a kid on the ground. They were slapping him, trying to wake him up. And I'm still standing right there, and I'm still not thinking that's my son. And so the ambulance hurried up and put him, when they said I screamed or something, that's when they hurried up and put him in the ambulance. And so now I'm behind the ambulance. And so I did not let that ambulance lose my sight because I still don't know what happened. And so now I have 2 police officers behind me on the freeway because I wouldn't stop. And I called the police on the police. I didn't know. And when I get to the hospital, I'm screaming, you know, I'm hollering. I said, my son have Medicare. He have Medicare. Fight, you know, can I hold him? And all that time, I did not know my son was deceased. My son was deceased, and they put dogs on me. They told me to leave. They did everything they could do. But the only thing I could do is just call my mom. And I called my mom, and I fell on the ground and just started praying because I felt helpless. And then they came out to let me know what happened to my son. And they tried to let me go in the room. And I said, no, I'm not going in no room. So my mom got there, and I said, me and my mom, well, she just passed away, it'll be a year this month. That's my soldier. So me and my mom goes back there, and then they tell us to go in this room. And I told my mom, I said, no, mama, I'm going where these officers at. And they were standing, and my son's body was over there with the officers. So they wouldn't let me never see my son. And I didn't go in no room, so when my kids heard me scream, all my kids rushed in there. We told the hospital, they put the hospital on shut down like we were criminals or something, because we all started screaming and hollering. So they telling me to leave, and I said, please, sir, can I just hold my son? And they said no. And so when I finally got my son, and I was mad, I was very mad. That's why I stand today, and what I believe in today is to fight, because I got to be my son's voice, because they took his voice, they silenced his voice. He did not deserve to be murdered. He did not deserve to be murdered. He was unarmed. He didn't have no weapon. He didn't get a second chance. He didn't get no second chance. Everybody get a second chance. The system, they get a second chance to bail out. But what about my son's life? So what I do, I stand for mothers no left behind no more. No mother left behind no more. Hold on. And so in my community, it's been a lot of deaths since my son James Rivera was shot. It's been a lot of deaths in my town. And I've been organizing, like they said, from Oakland. This is the AR kit, the AR. And this is why I fight so hard. We had to sew my son up. I had to go and identify my son, but when I see my son like this, I knew that I had to tell his story. And it was hard to dress him because I said I want to dress my son because when I dressed him, when I brought him in this world, so it was personal to me to dress my son, to let the world know this is why I fight. This is why I fight. And I carry these pictures around every day. This is why I carry around every day in my community, in any city I went. I've been to Ferguson, I've been out here marching, I've been all over, from Stockton all the way over to highways, and I have still not gave up. I'm going to continue to fight. And so please say his name, James Rivera. And thank y'all very much for bringing me out here to tell my story. Thank you.